I choose to do my service learning project with an organization called Hope in Our City at their Glorified Recess program in the Sun Valley neighborhood of Denver at Fairview Elementary School. Hope in Our City's mission is to build relationships with refugee individuals and families in the Sun Valley neighborhood of Denver in order to find out what they need from us and how we can best help them and how we can best love them as our neighbors. Hope in Our City is a Christian organization, and a big part of Christianity is loving one's neighbor as oneself. So Hope in Our City really lives out that mission, or lives out those words through their programs. They also believe that by building these connections, we are helping individuals grow stronger, and we're building a stronger community, city, state, and nation that's really filled with hope and unity and can be strong together instead of being divided by our differences. So I went to Hope in Our City's program called Glorified Recess, which is one of, I think, 4 or 5 different programs that they have. This is a really great time that you can go to the elementary school after the kids are out of school every Friday from 3 to 5 and spend quality time with these refugee kids. There are 5 to 6 different options of things for the kids to do depending on the day, which include kickball and football, basketball, playing on the playground, playing arts and crafts, and jump roping. And they also provide snacks and a bunch of water for the kids, so it's a really fun place for the kids to come hang out after school. A big part of the program is focusing on really building relationships with these kids rather than just going there and playing with them. It's all about making those strong connections. So here are some pictures that I took while I was there. The first on the left there is my little friend Naomi, who was teaching me, or proving to me rather, that she did indeed know how to braid hair. Second, we have the arts and crafts station where the kids made masks because it was Cinco de Mayo. Third is a Muslim refugee girl showing off her jump roping skills, and she was definitely better than I am or ever was. And last we have my friend Micaiah, who was great at gymnastics and could do all sorts of crazy tricks, so she was showing off on the monkey bars there. Just a little background on the Sun Valley neighborhood and why Hope in Our City chose to really focus on this neighborhood as their pilot community for their volunteer work and building those relationships. The Sun Valley neighborhood has a really large refugee population and for a while now has been known as the poorest neighborhood in Denver. In the Sun Valley neighborhood, 82% of kids under 18 are living in poverty, 85% of kids are living with a single parent, and 55% of the population is under 18. Also, 90% of people are living in subsidized housing, which is why I included that picture there, just so you can get a visual. And what makes this neighborhood pretty unique is that it's really isolated, which poses a problem for them. It's in a little pocket between Federal and I-25, right by Sports Authority Stadium, and there's no retail shops or anything there, so really they don't get a lot of traffic through, they don't get a lot of attention, and the attention that they do get tends to be pretty negative. So I chose to volunteer with Hope in Our City because I really love playing with kids and feeding into these kids and showing them how important they are. I'm a nanny, and I just think kids are our future, and it's so important to, nurture them and help them grow. I'm also really passionate about helping refugees, especially with the current political climate, and I actually am part Syrian, so all that's been going on with the Syrian refugee crisis has had a little bit of an impact on me and really made me think. I also think it's so important to let kids know and help give them a fair chance at life. These refugee kids have been through so much, and it might be easy for them to be negative and, think that they got dealt a bad hand, but by building strong relationships and loving on them, I think that we're able to show them that they have so much worth and they can do whatever they really want to do. And lastly, I think I really wanted to help so that these refugee families and kids have a more positive view of Christians, because I know that a lot of people in America tend to show, prejudice and don't treat these refugees well and don't want them in the country. But I want them to know that even though America is a Christian country and a lot of Americans act that way, that there are Christians who do deeply care about them despite our differences, and that we want them to be able to succeed here. Here is one of the kiddos I had the pleasure of playing with. She, again, was showing me some of her cool gymnastics tricks, as you'll see, and she was also an amazing dancer, and she wasn't shy to show it. So this is my friend Nate, who I met and pushed on the swings for a while, along with his friend Ridwan. These little boys were so sweet, and they actually asked if I wanted to be their best friend, which I thought was so sweet of them. So I obviously learned a ton from this project, but I think most importantly I learned the way that connection can really transcend race and culture and ethnicity in a really authentic way if you let it. It can be really easy to have your walls up and to be afraid to reach out, but when you do, I think, and you act from such a vulnerable place, it really leaves room to for that connection to form. I also learned that play is a universal language. Some of these kids have had really tough lives, and we have so many differences, and we don't look the same, and some of us don't talk the same, but when we can just get out there and play, it's like all of that just melts away, and we just get to have fun, which is so amazing. Also, I realized once again that kids are so resilient. These kids have had their lives turned upside down, yet they're out there having fun and playing and making new friends and learning at school. And lastly, I just realized that persistence is key, especially with these kids. Some of the kids did put on a tough, tough guy image and had kind of bad attitudes and seemed really disinterested, but I found those were the kids that it was most important to just sit down with and talk to and ask them questions and get to know them so they realize how much you really care, and then they'll start to open up. So my first connection to a theorist is to Duckworth's TED Talk, where she talked about grit. And although I did kind of disagree with some of the things she talked about in this talk because I thought it minimized the effect that systemic racism and oppression has on a lot of people, I think that it still made some good points, and I think that I definitely realized these kids that I was playing with had a ton of grit because they've gone through so much at such a young age, and they're still out there just, moving on. And I think it would be a lot easier in some situations to have a really crappy attitude and, to not show up, but these kids do it anyways. I also thought it was important to note the way that this TED Talk talked about some research out of Stanford that said that brain growth often happens in response to challenges that people face, and I think that was pretty apparent with these kids who had faced a ton of challenges, yet have come out so intelligent and smart and funny and, tricky at times. So it was pretty clear to me that their brains have grown a whole bunch and that some of them seemed a lot older than they actually were because of that. The second theorist that I connected my experience to was Super Harkness's developmental niche theory. This theory pretty much states that each child's developmental niche is made up of their physical and social settings of daily life, customs of childcare and child rearing, and psychology of their caretakers. I think it's pretty clear to see just looking at this list the way that all of these things are changed and affected when these refugee families are forced to pack up, and sometimes probably not even pack up, just up and move to the United States and leave everything that they've ever known. I think that especially the ways that they learn are different. All of a sudden they're sitting in a classroom, watching a teacher who they might not understand very well in an unfamiliar setting, in a country that they've just gotten to. Also the way that people play and work here, I'm sure, is much different than where they're from. I know a lot of these refugees were from Somalia. Also, just the physical setting and like the parents' mental health that probably isn't doing that well after they've had to leave and all of the things that they've gone through. They might have some trauma that happened, so all of these things have changed so much and they're all influencing the child. So when all of those get shooken up, it's pretty expected that these kids would find themselves a little bit lost, and I think that was shown at this recess by the way that some of these kids were acting. There was some fighting and some swearing and, you know, making fun of each other, calling names, and they did actually warn before I went to volunteer. In the email they said that this was to be expected, but that's just how the kids are, and to not really worry too much about disciplining them. But I think that it definitely fits that these kids would be acting out when their entire world has changed and kind of been taken out from underneath them. This volunteer experience obviously had a huge impact on me, and in the future I'm definitely going to keep volunteering with Hope in Our City, for sure at their recess program, but maybe even in youth mentorship, which I think sounds really cool. It also made me realize how easy it is to get involved. The process was so simple, and it really made me wish that I had done it sooner. It also really pointed out to me how 1 hour of volunteer a week can provide such a stable, solid relationship with these kids and give these kids someone to look up to, which helps them to build a better sense of self and, you know, sets them up for more success in the future once they're grown up. My eyes were really opened when I saw how different these people were living in a community that's only 10 or 15 minutes away from where I live myself. And it just really made me think about the way that kind of everything is based on a natural lottery. These people got born into the families that they did, and I got born into the family that I did, and, you know, that set our fate, essentially. So it really propelled me into action by, you know, showing me firsthand how these people are living, and how special they are. And once I've seen that, it's impossible to put it on the back burner and, you know, to just ignore it. I just want to be there helping as much as I can, because these refugees are so special and provide, you know, such an interesting dynamic and so much richness to our city. So this project definitely set me into action, and I can't wait to apply some of what I learned and, you know, my experience in the future. I really hope to stay involved with the refugee community so that they know they can trust me as a therapist in the future, and that they're not afraid to visit me because they think I don't know their story, I don't really care, or whatever the reason may be. And along with this, I think that it'll be important for me to offer some pro bono sessions so that these refugee families can seek therapy from me even if they can't afford it. As a Christian, like I said before, it's important to me to know that, or for me, that the refugees know that I do love them and care for them so much, even though our faith is not the same. That is not a factor in the way that I build our connection and the way that I care for them so much. It goes to show just that love and connection really is the most important thing that we have in life, and without that, nothing else really matters.